When was the last time you looked up? When did you look up into the night sky? Perhaps it's been a while. Perhaps the lights of your town are so bright little is left to be seen. But if you can find a place, far away from the pollutions of the eye, some place you can lay back and look up, and I mean really look, there you can find the unending frontier, both of body and of mind. Just with your eyes you can see a collection of orbs that are bright yet distant. You may see Polaris in the north, a star used both by common folk and astronomers to find their way. For us on Earth, it helps to point the way to the Arctic Pole. But with telescopes we discover it is a variable star, changing in size and brightness at a regular rate. This star is of a type used to find the distances to galaxies of barely imaginable remoteness. Truly, it is a star to guide us. Keep looking up, and you will find many other stars with things to tell us. There are also the planets of our solar system, slowly whirling about the sun and our night sky. And there is the Milky Way. Lying over the dome of stars is a band of dust, gas, and stellar light. Many of the past thought it the souls of ancestors, and still it can stir our souls. At this level, we know the stars can and do affect us. They stir us to wonder, to explore, to desire to know. Perhaps it is no wonder we could believe they could affect us even more tangibly. With their slow and orderly dance, perhaps the stars and planets could point out our destinies, and perhaps we could know it. This is an ancient pursuit, known as the practice of astrology, a form of divination since the Babylonians thousands of years ago. It also flourished in other parts of the world, such as China, but the practice known to most Westerners today is that produced by the ancient Greeks and Romans, themselves influenced by the Babylonians and the Egyptians. However, this antiquity is no proof that those beliefs they held are valid, as they also thought animal entrails could prophesy things to come. Can the stars tell us the future? Tell us something individually about ourselves? Tell us who we should be with, what we should do, who we can love? Apparently many do, at least given its prominence in newspapers, Facebook apps, and books sold to many laypersons. But does it actually work? And how could it work? And if so many believe in its power, what does that mean about its abilities? This fits into the venue of the same process that discovered the variability of the stars and their distances, the method that has so wonderfully well described our world, the sciences. From what we know, how plausible could it be that the planets and stars affect our lives, even a little bit? Physics can say something about that, as it explores the ways all things influence each other through the forces. To date, there are 4 fundamental forces: electromagnetism, which describes light, gravity, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. The latter 2 only push and pull at tiny atomic distances. Only other 2 can extend over light years. If the stars have any chance to push our affairs consistently with physics, it must be through these forces. However, the light of stars could touch very few of us, since we are often born in hospitals and houses, and to imagine we could change our fate depending on wooden roofs and having the drapes closed. Only gravity cannot be stopped by such obstacles, but it is also profoundly weak. The force on you from Mars or Jupiter was not greater than that of the midwife and doctor that birthed you, and if there is some unknown force yet to be discovered, it is far weaker than gravity. Otherwise, it would have been a bit noticeable on our experiments by now. Even worse, these stellar forces, as described by the astrologers, have no dependence on distance from the earth dwellers. It is only the position in the sky that matters, but this can mean there are huge differences in distance between the Earth and a given planet, even when it is in the same position in the sky. This breaks a principle known as locality, which is a non-trivial thing to ignore. It also means that every object in the universe matters in the calculation of a horoscope. Needless to say, astrologers do not account for the 400 billion stars in the Milky Way, let alone the billions of other galaxies of stars, or the billions of planets, asteroids, moons, comets, black holes, and nebulae. And why not? Odd things to just ignore? What this means is that if astrology has any truth to it about the stars influencing us, it would require a revolution in physics. This is strange because of the great astronomers and physicists of the past were also astrologers. If astrology worked, if it had predictive power, it is odd that it left the scientific world centuries ago and is called pseudoscience. Why did astrology and science part ways if the former had truth to it? This is something we can study. Is there a correlation between personalities and fates of people and the times and places of their birth as astrologers require for their calculations? And perhaps equally important, can astrologers predict from their horoscopes correctly more often than chance? These things again fit into the empirical world of science. We can see if there is some statistical correlation between star positions in the sky and the people born under them. And we can test to see if astrologers can pick out what is true from their charts. How so? With enough data, it is possible to see if there is a correlation between time and place of birth and personality characteristics and intelligence. And the results are decisively negative. Whether Jupiter was in Aries or Leo, whether the Sun was in Libra or Cancer, nothing can be seen that changed whether a given person was more and less intelligent, desirable, introversive, or psychotic. If the astrologers are correctly predicting from horoscopes, this is most strange. But in fact, this can also be tested in a simple way, as has been done by several groups of researchers. Take a given group of astrologers and a collection of horoscopes and personality tests. If the astrologers can make predictions from horoscopes, they should be able to match up a given star chart with personalities better than chance. But again, the tests show a dramatic level of failure. Never do any astrologers, no matter their level of experience or years of practice, connect horoscopes to personalities better than chance. This is not the worst result from such tests. Not only do the astrologers make no correct predictions on average, compared to chance, but in fact they disagree with each other almost completely. On average, they barely agree with each other's interpretations better than chance. In practical terms, it means that not only do astrologers miss the target, they are lucky if they even point at the same target twice in a row. It'd be like having a dart thrower both blinded and inebriated, a dangerous combination. But how can it be that the practitioners of this art be so wrong if they are so often consulted? You may have had a reading done by an astrologer and found their assessment dead on. How do we explain this? Think back to the last time you read or listened to an astrologer. Think about what they said or wrote. Or was it something that could apply to many different people? Do you remember if they got everything right? Perhaps you missed or forgot about some of the incorrect things they said. And perhaps they contradicted themselves. So you remember the one that was right and not the other. And perhaps the astrologers know something in advance. These things have plagued astrological practices for centuries. Even in antiquity, the subject had internal contradictions, and the same planet in the same aspect can have opposing qualities. The errors of the past were papered over with excuses. The great Ptolemy of Alexandria, whose version of horoscopic astrology would influence horoscopes of the Western sort, complained about the number of fraudsters and the difficulty of the subject. So no wonder there were so many false claims. And we know of astrologers changing their predictions when things didn't go according to plan. Look at what astrologers said of the Byzantine usurper Leontius in 484 AD at his coronation. Because of Jupiter and the Sun in conjunction at the ascendant, this would be a prosperous leader. Things would be okie dokie. But then a few years later was killed, and the astrologers excused themselves for not considering the problems with Mars. To think they had missed that planet, the one that would tell them if his fate would be so terrible. The same story can be repeated many, many times. Sometimes also an astrologer will know something about their client in advance. So it may be that the stars are not telling, but they can be made to say what is needed. Even the great Johannes Kepler is guilty of this when he cast a horoscope for a then famous political leader. But more often than not, what is used by astrologers are statements that can fit most all people. What this means is that the success of astrologers is not in the abilities to know the future, but their abilities to look like they know what they are talking about. The facts are sound and well established. Astrology requires physics to be fundamentally wrong, yet astrologers predict no better than chance, and they agree with each other almost no better than that. If you still believe in the power of your favorite diviner, reconsider what they had said. Do you notice how often they are right and wrong? Do you notice if the statements are vague or precise? Could there be another explanation about what they know about you? Do they agree with other practitioners? These questions should come to the forefront the next time you consider a consultation. So much for astrology telling us about our destinies. How it seems that science disconnects us from the universe. Oh, but how untrue is that? Astronomy tells us so much about our place in the cosmos, tells us about the amazing journey every atom in our bodies had to take to become what we are in the assembly of the human body. There is a mountain of existential truth we have, not despite science, but because of it. Not only do the methods connect us to each other over continents and oceans, but to ourselves. We know about our history and what makes us who we are, and it is the sciences that truly explain how the universe affects us. Every star we now know is a sun, every planet a world, every skylight a possibility for another to contemplate their own place in the world. If you want to connect to the stars in the way that is truly deep and profound, find that place to just look. Look into the sky with your eyes. Look with a telescope. Look with the images of the great observatories around the world. Look up, because those lights are what made us in a very real way. Because we want to someday go there. Because it is vast and beautiful. Because we can. And that is supernatural enough.